Section 4F refers to a part of the U.S. Department of Transportation Act of 1966 that was amended earlier this year. These regulations require that projects requiring use of parks, recreation areas, or historic sites, and those are the historic sites that are eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, must document that no feasible or prudent alternatives to the use of those sites exists, and it must fully consider measures to minimize harm to those sites. This very stringent regulation was eased a little by the recent modifications to it. The amendments made earlier this year to the regulation allows a balancing of impacts to parks, recreation, and historic resources against other types of impacts. And that's what our decision-making process in the upcoming months will do, is figure out what the balance of those relationships really is. But avoidance of adverse impacts to parks, recreation, and historic resources still remain a very strong factor in the Federal Highway Administration's approval of a preferred alternative. This map shows the 4F resources in the project area. The park and recreation resources include the Springwater Corridor Trail, the Willamette Greenway Trail, both east and west banks, the Sellwood Riverfront Park, Oaks Pioneer Park, the Sellwood Bridge Recreational Trail, which is really the bridge itself. It's considered a recreational resource, Powers Marine Park, and the Willamette Moorage Park. The historic resources in the project area include the Riverview Cemetery, so that's the cemetery itself is considered an historic site. The Superintendent's House, which is where the funeral home is now housed, is a separate historic resource by itself. The Oaks Pioneer Church and the Sellwood Bridge, also an historic structure. Because all build alternatives impact 4F resources, and you can see they're spread all over the project area, there's no feasible and prudent avoidance alternative. And because there is no avoidance alternative, Federal Highway Administration will approve the alternative that causes the least overall harm to 4F resources based on an assessment of 7 least harm analysis factors. These factors were incorporated into the new 4F statute to ensure that selection of the preferred alternatives considers impacts to those resources in relation to non-4F related resources. And that could be housing or business or any number of other factors. So before there were these recent modifications, impacts to 4F resources really trumped impacts to other kinds of resources, but now there's an allowing for balancing of impacts to these resources and other resources. It's not possible to complete that least harm analysis now, but known factors indicate the least impacts from alternative D. Other factors to be considered after review of the draft environmental impact statement can modify those results. This is a final note about the nature of a preferred alternative. If you're trying to decide what alternative you prefer, it's possible to select one of the 5 alternatives we've analyzed in the draft environmental impact statement, either A, B, C, D, or E that I've described here. Or you might want to put forward a hybrid alternative. A hybrid alternative must include an alignment, a west side interchange type, an east side connection, and a cross section. Those are the 4 required elements of any alternative. Other considerations might be important to you, and it would be useful for us to know that. Other kinds of considerations might include a phasing approach, a bridge type. We won't be selecting a bridge type as part of the locally preferred alternative because we need more engineering information before that can be done. But if you prefer one over another, that would be useful to know. And there may be other considerations that you think are important that could be added, but they wouldn't be part of the locally preferred alternative itself. Thank you.